our documentary panel, and we'll start off with having you guys introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about your background in documentary filmmaking, and anything else you'd like to add, what you're working on now, etc.
Want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
My name's Adam Schomer. Good morning, everyone. We can get your name too.
We can all hang out.
We can all hang out. Very good. I run a company called I Productions. I direct and produce, and some of the films include The Highest Pass, which was motorcycling through the Himalayas with yogis facing death and fear over the highest road in the world. Polygon, which was radioactivity from nuclear fallout in Kazakhstan. Recently, a film that's playing here that Barry edited is called One Little Pill, a New Treatment for Alcoholism. One Little Pill plays on Saturday, and that's a 52 minute doc. So yeah, in general, I look for stories, the wisdom underneath the entertainment. I like to entertain through good storytelling, through the characters, be it motorcycle to the Himalayas, but really have this point of view to educate the audience and help people come away feeling like, yeah, a little more enlightened, so to speak, on their world and how we live.
Okay. Hi, I'm Barry Rubinow. I am been working in documentaries a long time. I started out at USC Film School and worked on docs and dramatic films there, but pretty soon out of school I mainly focused on documentaries and mainly on editing. I've been an editor for most of my career, and although I've also produced and directed. And I made a lot of films with a guy who I met at school, and then in mid-2005 he started a channel called the Documentary Channel, which was on Dish Network and DirecTV, 26 million homes. Unfortunately, so I was lucky enough to be one of the founding members of that and head of all production and post-production. It was a very small company. And I was on that from 2005 until last year, and then we were bought by Participant Media. And then I went back to be a freelance editor, and I actually met Adam at this panel last year, at HollyShorts documentary panel. We met and kind of hit it off. I won't say we think each other now. No, but we made a film together, One Little Pill, that he just mentioned. We're copying it right now as the final version, hopefully the final version, yeah, close to the final version. That's about it.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm currently working as a co-executive producer on a documentary TV show called City Walk. It's on KCT here in Los Angeles, and it's a KCT link, so it's a show about walking in walkable communities. I took a circuitous route to documentary filmmaking. I started out as an actor, was making a huge living at that, and then went into narrative features for a few years at a small indie company, made a lot of wacky comedies and had a very good time for about 6 years. Then did a couple of indie films back in the 90s, and wound up in kids TV, wound up meeting someone whose husband ran National Geographic TV, wound up getting hired to write a treatment for a National Geographic special called Avalanche. Somehow or another, they liked the treatment that I wrote, and they hired me to write the show, which is ridiculously unheard of for someone who had never done a documentary, but I'd watched a lot of docs. I think the secret to that was I've watched so many, I understood the structure and the storytelling aspect of it, which to me is really the most important thing of anything with that. And then I've been making a living writing documentaries since then. So I've done a few for National Geographic Television. I've been doing some science stuff, which I really like. I've been nominated for 2 Emmys. I got nominated for the Avalanche, the first thing I did, which blew my mind because I had never done that before. And then a few years ago, I did a documentary about exoplanets, alien Earths, that oddly enough got nominated for an Emmy in animation because we had cool animation, but since I was a writer, I was nominated as well, and we were up against The Simpsons and Family Guy, and I was so excited to meet the people that do The Simpsons, I cannot tell you. We didn't win, but it was a really fun party, and so then since then I've done, I wrote for Nova, WGBH, a few Novas, which is pretty high-end. I learned a lot by being into that microscope. and Nova Science now, and then I'm doing City Walk. That's it.
Thank you. So,
Can you guys hear okay?
A little louder? Okay.
You don't know, you guys don't? Okay.
We can
won't
project.
mumble.
Yeah, we can project.
So I'm sure a number of us out there are first-time documentary filmmakers. What advice do you have going forward for someone who has never made a documentary film before, but maybe has a background in narrative or other film production?
Want me to start? Okay. Well, maybe I'll excuse me. I'll take it from the like aesthetic version, because there's a lot of a business angle, but as far as aesthetics go, documentaries are generally, well, let's start with dramatic films, as I'm sure you know, have a script that you usually work on for a really long time until you're happy with it, and that's sort of your guide, for every shot you're going to do every day of production, obviously, so forth. Documentaries are much more open-ended, and so it's very good to have a very strong idea of what you want to accomplish, because if you don't, you can really get lost. Because you want to be open to things happening on the set, or just you come across people, or you'll be interviewing a person about your topic, and they'll mention something, and something you didn't know about, and it might lead you down a path which could be great, or it could be a waste of time. So you have to be open, but you have to have a very clear vision, and you have to want to follow that vision, and be very persistent about it. That's one angle of it.
Do you guys write first when it came to Nat Geo? Do you write first and then film after?
In some situations, like the Avalanche show, I was originally hired to write a treatment for this show because the budget was $1 million and they wanted to know what they were going to do. So what I did, I knew nothing about the subject. In fact, the way I approach, this is just me, you can do what you want to do, but when I approach any subject, I start out by finding out every single thing I could possibly find out before I even write a word. So and that's just because I was scared, and I also think that when you're watching a doc or watching anything, you kind of want to, not that everything has to be the ultimate documentary on something, but before you start doing things, you better it's helpful to find out everything, because when you're making a film or doing something, it's choice, and you can only choose from what you know. So if you start out by knowing all these things, then you can decide what the trajectory of your story wants to be. So in this first Avalanche show, I called up every Avalanche expert in the country. Turns out there's only 20, so it was easy. And it's funny you were talking about, you never know where it's going to lead you. By those initial phone calls, I found out about a guy who had been hit by 3 avalanches in like 3 days, which I thought, that is good television. That's a story I want to know. I got his number. I called the guy, and actually in this particular show, it's the final 15 minutes of the show because it's a good story. Now, I don't know that I could have done that. You could do that, I guess, in the field while you're shooting, but sometimes, I guess I would say for writing, in your initial research, pre-production doesn't cost anything. It's your time. So while you're doing those kinds of things, it'll be easier to decide how you're going to want to produce. You can save money. On the Novas, again, that's it's generally pre-scripted, but they shoot a lot of things. In situations like that, I just wrote a show about Antarctica. I didn't even know where Antarctica was. I didn't know anything about ice. I didn't know anything about any of it. And they got annoyed with me because I read 3 books really fast to find out anything. But it turned out on this particular show, they had been in production for 4 years, shooting some drilling beneath the ice, and there was a treatment, but because it wasn't thoroughly researched, when they strung all of it together, there was no show. It was not airable. And I saw it. I didn't understand it, because what happens and what can happen if you don't have a clear guide of what you're doing is you can get so lost in the details that you'll understand it, but everyone else is not necessarily going to know. And so what I did is I did all of that, and then went back to the original sources and spoke with the scientists and asked them what exactly was going on. But then the other thing I learned on that one, which is something to think about, which is why should anyone care about the film I'm making? Why should anyone watch, whether it's 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or 2 hours? And so what you want to try and do is when you're setting this stuff up, is open it up with something that can bring people in, and not insult people's intelligence, but tell them why they should care. And if you're dealing with concepts or different things, always remember that people need to follow what's going on, so you take it kind of slower. So that answer it?
And the original question is for someone starting out as well?
Yeah, the first time documentary filmmakers.
I'll speak to that from a production standpoint and passion standpoint. If you have something that you're passionate about, I think that's a great start. That's what happened for me. I was more in the narrative world as well, comedy as well, and something I had been studying and knew a lot about, which again makes it easy to do, which was yogic principles and the philosophy of yoga. And so I think that's a good start if it's something you already know about and are passionate about. But then I think it really just takes a big cojones, basically. It takes a lot of balls to just do it. I had never done a documentary before, and I just knew I could, and I would learn. And it made it tough, of course, because I'm learning everything every day. But I think the documentary world is somewhat forgiving in that fashion, that you can jump in and you can do it. And of course, you're wasting time in that way, but for me, I knew it was important just to hire the best people I could. Because that way, as a producer, the film's going to be fantastic because they know what they're doing, and I can keep them driven on what the vision of the project is. And ours was a more process-based, where it's just people having this adventure, so less written, but we definitely knew the themes going in. We knew we wanted to address death and fear, and so of course, knowing that, like anything, it's not as objective as you think. Documentary, you're always giving your spin by just what you're choosing to look at. So my advice is to have balls, and if you're passionate about it, do your best to raise some money and hire the best people you can, so the product in the end is top notch.
Barry, you had kind of touched a little bit on the beginning there about the business, like you need to be an entirely business-minded person as well. Can you talk about that a little bit in the world of documentary filmmaking?
Sure. Well, the business of documentary is very, very tough. I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's really hard. I mean, there's different. I'm speaking mainly from like independent docs, both when I'm talking aesthetically and business-wise. There's the docs like Steve was with National Geo making docs for them, which are great television. It's just a different kind of thing.
It's still a rough business too, trust me.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. But just to give you, like when the documentary channel was in existence, we had like $5 to $10 grand to license a film for 2 years, and it's not a lot of money. I'm sure everybody knows that. And obviously there are channels like HBO and PBS, and then there's other outlets that pay a lot more, but it's very, very tough to get through to them, and your film has to be, really something special for them to even consider it. So it's a very tough business. But the thing I love about it is just about every independent doc ever made. It's a passion project. It's something like Adam was talking about, something you really, really want to do, and it's people who are incredibly driven, and they'll just keep knocking on doors to get money to make it, or pleading with people to work on it for free, and so there's an incredible amount of passion in each project, and that's great. But getting your money back is a difficult thing, and so I guess on the good side, it's much, much cheaper now. I've been around a little while, but back, in the 80s, it was, 16 millimeter. And 16 millimeter was, it was cheaper than 35, yes, but it was still very expensive. And now with the digital, you can shoot as much as you want, and the cameras are cheaper and everything, and post is cheaper. So again, there's a good and bad to that. The good thing is it's easier. The barriers to entry are much lower. It's pretty easy to go out and make a film. You can get a camera, shoot, and edit it. The bad side is that everybody's doing it. There's a huge amount of product out there, and film festivals are just overloaded with product. So it's harder and harder to get noticed. At least that's my opinion. But again, if you're passionate and you can create a vision that people, a compelling film, I say go for it, because to me there's nothing more fun than either making them or watching them than a documentary. So.
Yeah, documentaries are on the rise, I would say, overall. That's the good thing. People
Yes.
are watching more, and Netflix, etc. are paying more
Yeah,
attention
Netflix
to
is a
it.
good outlet.
They're-
They're actually buying a lot of documentaries. I should mention.
So that's the good thing, on the business side, that people are paying attention to us.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's
What does Netflix pay?
I haven't tried to sell them.
I haven't sold an original to them, but on a year to year, it can range. But they definitely don't tell you how many, $8,000, let's say, for a year license. But they definitely don't tell you how many people watch it, so you don't have any negotiating power the next year. I can derive from what's happened with mine that probably 500,000 people saw it the first year, because of how many people rated it. And if you just think how many people actually take the time to give it some stars on Netflix, you can say, all right, well, if 30,000 rated it, maybe X amount.
Can you explain that again? You don't have any negotiating power because you can't point to how many people have seen it because you don't know?
Netflix, yeah, on Netflix specifically, they don't tell you how many people have seen your film on Netflix, because they just don't want you to know how popular it is. So they can be like, we're just going to give you $1,000 for the next year or whatever. And you can say, wait, 2 million people watched my film. They'd be like, yeah, that's true. They don't tell you. Netflix is a whole different ball of wax when it comes to how they even analyze things. It's very analytical. It's very data-driven, from what I've heard from inside sources. It's very less driven by aesthetics or, hey, we think this would be great. Whereas Apple, right, will be like, we want to make our interface look pretty, and this is the way we think it should be, and people will come around to it. Netflix will analyze everything and test everything over 6 months and be like, well, most people signed up when we did this, and that's how we're going to do it. Strange. I hope they're buying more now.
Well, it seems to me that they have quite a few, and I have no inside information at all about Netflix, but my guess would be just that they're cheaper. I mean, the reason they don't have every big Hollywood studio film that comes out, after 6 months or whatever the window is probably because they're really expensive, and docs are cheaper. But it's good for people who love docs, because they have a lot of good ones on the. There's one just off the cuff called The Square, which was nominated either last year or the year before. I just watched it on Netflix streaming. It's a hell of a film.
Yeah.
It is an unbelievable film. I would just recommend it.
Didn't they produce it?
It's definitely
Actually,
Netflix
that's
original.
right.
I think they produced it.
That's right.
They produced it.
Or at
Maybe
least,
why it's on
or at
Netflix
least-
streaming. One of the
Or
reasons.
they financed
They
it.
might have financed. Yeah,
They financed it.
one thing I'll add from a business standpoint is I started
Maybe it's a damn good film.
Yeah, I want to see it.
narrative features, not narrative, but documentary features, and I go project to project. But I also recognize that there is more money or more opportunity, I think, in TV when it comes to docu-series, especially in Europe. There's a lot more documentary happening, a lot more commissioning for documentary. But from a personal standpoint, I also would love to be in someone's home a little longer for a docu-series that's 5, 6 parts or 10 parts, rather than my one-off film. You spend so much time, and someone watches it and then they move on with their life. I think you can get in people's heads and in the conversation more if you have a series. So I'm looking more to
Yeah, it makes sense.
have a docu-series, because I just want to say more and I want to touch people.
I mean, we're doing this City Walk show, which is a series. We did 8 episodes last year. We're doing 6 right now. However, the economics of it are also very difficult because there's not a lot of money. It's on KCT, which they don't have much money, so we're having to constantly go out for financing sources to foundations and support things like that. However, on the upside, once you have some kind of a series in a place where you can put it, and even if it's a minimal amount of money, you're right, you get an audience that will stick around, and they keep repeating it, and it's been a really fun experience because we were talking actually earlier, this show, unlike the other things, is not written ahead of time. What we do is we go out and pick a subject that seems interesting, and then meet people, and then just make a personal story or something that we hope people will want to watch. And I'm walking more because I've been working on the show.
And if you haven't looked at Link and KCET do
They're
a
doing
lot
some
of
really
good
good,
docs.
they're doing a lot of good stuff, and actually
They do
they're
a lot of-
they're going to get better. They're going to get
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people saw the highest pass on Link randomly, and people look to it for like old school good documentary, good news.
Yeah, and things are changing there rapidly. They've got several really great doc series. They've got Artbound, Departures, and things like that. And I think they're about to become, they're not part of public broadcasting, they're like very independent. It's almost like an indie film television station, you know, not a lot of funding, but a lot of innovation and really cool things are going to be happening ahead. And I'm personally really happy to be, you know, part of what's going on. I hope that I can be part of some of the cool stuff that's about to transpire.
I was going to say one other thing about distribution. I'm not an expert in distribution, but I think as everybody's aware, the landscape is changing unbelievably quickly. And I mean, Netflix has been around a few years. And, you know, YouTube hasn't even been around that long. And so the landscape is changing all the time. And I think that leads to a lot of opportunity. And I'm not going to say, well, then, you know, so what you should do is this, because I don't know. But what I'm saying is if you use the same kind of innovation that you need to make your film in distribution, you know, it could be successful. Because there's a lot, I mean, obviously, you know, with social media and all the things that are going on.
Let's talk a little bit more about the fact that the landscape is changing and kind of the current climate what people are wanting to see. Do you find that you're still able to pursue the stories that you want to pursue? Do you have to compromise there? How do you find that balance? Talk about that a little bit.
I mean, I could say that I'm always going for the stories that I want, you know, the series that I want to do, but I'm definitely finding where I come up against the wall in terms of the network still, and that's where digital might be a great outlet for some of the cool things that I want to do, because it's just not necessarily, the networks don't necessarily see it yet, but if you could do it in the digital space, maybe it'll end up pushing the networks that way, which I think is beautiful, because they might see, oh, the audience does want something that has a little more heart or spirit to it, so don't be so afraid of something that's quote unquote spiritual, you know, just call it growth. I've been pitching a lot lately, and I can also say that there's been many meetings where it's like, well, what if we just change the whole thing like this? And then we really lose the part that is so ridiculous and fun about a certain show, which is like, okay, but I've also had very honest people say, yeah, that's a great documentary. If you bring it to me, I will ruin it so badly. If we made it for TV, she was so honest, I love it. She's like, I will ruin that documentary. Please go make it as a feature and take it through the festivals because it's a great idea. We would kill it. So I like the honesty, but I think TV, you know, as what I've just been doing the last few months, pitching lots of TV, I realize how their minds work and how much they, I guess, have to work that way for some channels, knowing their audience and knowing what they can and can't do, and I have to respect that because it's their whole brand. But it's challenging, I'd say. It's challenging to see your baby changed a bit, and I guess my method is keep doing it my own way and just find another outlet.
Yeah, well, just going with what Adam was saying, that's another reason that it's really hard as a documentary filmmaker is because, like Nat Geo or even HBO, HBO does buy some docs, but most of them are ideas that Sheila Evans comes up with and hires people to make them. And CNBC has a lot of good docs now, but they're all in-house, and MSNBC also, and other channels. So it's, I mean, I don't want to be negative, but it is a very challenging environment, especially if you want to really follow your vision. I mean, if you're the type that's like, okay, well, I don't care, mess it up. I just want to sell it, you know. But that's a constant problem, is having your ideals kind of chipped away at.
Real quick, and on the film we just did, as I talked to certain sales companies in Europe, they have their point of view. And the crazy thing is they said, look, can you put more science into the doc and more of the counter argument? And if you could change, 20 minutes of your film, I can sell the hell out of it. Great, okay, if you gave me money to do that, we can recut the thing, and it would still keep its heart. It's just really interesting, different networks and different, parts of the world want different things. I mean, we made it actually more dramatic and entertaining, and then Europe's like, can you make it more boring, basically? It'll sell better. I was just like, what is going on? But sometimes I would change it, as long as it's getting the true message out there. I think we would, because ours is a very social documentary, the treatment of alcoholism. But every network wants their own version. That's just crazy.
One thing I would say too, though, is if you're starting out as a documentary filmmaker, you should do what you want to do right now, because now would be the time to express your vision, create it, and show how good you are. Because if you do good work in the beginning, then you'll you'll get the attention of the Sheila Nevins of the world, of different people. If you make a cool doc, then you become one of those people that can say, "Hey, this is my vision," as opposed to. In the beginning is not the time, I don't think, to pull back. I would, if I were doing my own thing right now, I'd be doing that. In fact, I've got a short that I'm working on that I haven't been able to finish because I'm always working on other things. But I'm doing what I want to do, because once you get into the television game, there are other people giving you notes left and right, and then what you find yourself doing is giving them what they want and always trying to keep what you want, so you can keep it kind of there, and so everyone has to. I mean, that's the professional game. But if you're doing your own independent documentary, the short or the feature, go full force, and show what it is you can do, because that's where you're going to get your chance to shine, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
So say I.
Go ahead, Nick. Or do you want to open
One
up
more
for
question,
questions?
then I was going to open
Okay.
it up.
Okay.
Budgeting for a documentary film and financing. You guys talked about
Okay. Make sure you have budget for post-production. All the way through
Don't
to the
spend
end.
it all.
Yeah. Well, it's tough. I mean, some people go out there without any budget, but obviously it's better if you have if you have some money to have it allocated very carefully. Because a lot of times, I mean, being in post-production, there's many times where we had money, but it's all gone, and we just, sorry. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say.
If you don't know how to budget for a documentary, ask someone that does. You don't want to mess it up, right? Because, like you said, you want to make sure you have money for post-production and for E&O insurance at the end and for distribution, so that you know what you got to do. E&O insurance, what? Oh God, there's another $4,000. And at the end, that's difficult. So just ask someone that can send you a template, or at least give you some ideas and help with that. Because it's always, what I find is I can give many budgets for a certain documentary. I can make it for many different amounts, but there's some levels you can't go under, or it won't get done, right? The thing won't get done. If you're getting everyone for free, it won't get done. So you have to know, hey, I want to just do this. My first doc, I said, there's no way I'm just hand-holding it, doing it on my own. If I get money, I'll do it. If I get the $250,000, I'll do it, but I won't do it otherwise. It's going to be beautiful or nothing, because we're going to the Himalayas and we're doing this thing. It better be shot well and it better be top-notch. So that's how I came into it, and for the most part, that's how I roll, if you will. You better have the money, or it's going to drag on for 8 years. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, and there are a lot of resources out there. The International Documentary Association has seminars on those things, or there's a thing called DocuLink. You can just ask a question online, and it's a listserv. People just answer it. I use that a lot. So there's a lot of online resources that can be helpful with guiding you or finding you to the right people, or steering you what you want to do. So it's the good news is all this technology, the documentary community has become, it's a worldwide community, and nothing filmmakers like to do better than say what they know. They are helpful, just because they like to blather on. So you'll be able to find things out. Yeah, like here. So you're not alone. You're not alone.
I just have one quick thing I wanted to say before questions. And that is just, I think it's really important, no matter what kind of doc, or actually it doesn't even matter if it's doc or dramatic, but I think it's important to get a sense of the history of it. There is a very rich history of documentary film, and it's good to see what's been done. I mean, one that comes to mind for me always, because it's one of my favorites of all times, is called Harlan County, USA. It was made by Barbara Koppel in the 70s, I believe. It's about coal miners in Kentucky who are on strike, and it's like the most incredible dramatic film in terms of what's going on, and yet it's all cinema verite. I mean, there's no interviews even, it's all just shot. and it's an amazing film. And you know, see some of Errol Morris's films, some of Werner Herzog's documentaries, even Michael Moore and Ken Burns and whatever. And there's lists of like 100 greatest documentaries or 25, and you know, I think it's good to get a sense of history so before you set out on your own.
I completely second that. I mean, there's no way. I mean, I lucked out on my first job, but I don't think I could have ever written or done that first National Geographic show had I not. I was a fanboy, so I was like watching a lot of docs. And by the time it came up, I already knew the language. I didn't actually set out. I didn't know that I was ever going to do them. It wasn't really a plan. I just liked watching them. I will say that once I started making them, I liked watching them less because it started feeling like work. So I watch cartoons now, which I really enjoy. And we'll get into that. But it's really helpful to see that because the more things you watch, it can help you figure out how you want to tell your story and give you an idea of possibilities out there and inspire you to come up with your own vision, your own way of communicating. And so it's yeah, I mean, it's like, it makes complete sense. I completely agree.
Open it up to the audience. Anybody have any questions?
So when it comes to editing, you can ask Barry after, you know, about like what it used to be like for editing.
What it's like now.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about cutting film.
It's so interesting how lucky we are at this point.
So do you guys usually learn how to negotiate on the fly, or are you exchanging stories, or is there some resource that you turn to, or is there some resource that is needed?
Negotiate.
You're like, oh God, if only we had fill in the blank. How do you handle that, negotiating for the first time, or all of this sort of, you know, talking about the money and getting your piece of it and all that?
Negotiate with who? With the distributors or with the networks or with
All of that.
the people you hire? Or
Yeah, sure. Any of that. Are you learning on the fly? Are you turning to a certain resource to share with each other? Is it...
I mean, I can speak to my own growth. For most things, I ran businesses from a young age, and I would just say a lot of those skills tie into being a producer. I'm glad I didn't start doing it when I was, you know, let's just say I stepped into documentary filmmaking when I already had an arsenal of skills in general that helped me in life, as well as patience and ability to, you know, realize the person in front of me might be a 5-year-old in some ways, and just to remember what we're trying to do. So those kind of things are amazing. When it comes to the parts you don't know, like distribution, and you're negotiating with someone in distribution, you should ask a lawyer or somebody else that's been there, because yeah, most of it I was learning for the first time when talking to a distribution company, and just have to research so I can pretend I know enough to talk.
The IDA has been mentioned. They have a lot of good seminars on distribution, and you know, it's a good place to start. You know, the tough thing is I don't think anybody's going to give away like any real secrets. You know, if they have something that's really putting them ahead of everybody else, you know, they don't want to sit there and tell everybody. But
Distribution
but
companies
it's
are
good to
really-
get exposure on all that, and also probably to get around, you know, work for somebody who's doing it is the best way. But it's a good point you brought up about, you know, I don't know if really besides like the IDA and a few other seminars where you can really talk to other people about it, because that's, you know, that's the really important thing, and it's hard to get that kind of information.
Distribution companies are, watch out, just watch out.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully people told me that too, watch out. And sometimes you take the deal just because you want, you know, you want that step. You want to be distributed, you want to be theatrical, but you know, the deals aren't that great unless you're a hit, you know, unless you're really winning some of these top festivals. You just know, okay, maybe it's like Barry said, tough to get your money out, but if you can get out there and get it with a company, great. Otherwise, we're blessed that you can get out there on your own. You can get on iTunes and Amazon. Distribution-wise, you can get out there. So you can avoid that scene. I'm not too much of a fan of the company I work with.
You mentioned earlier that Netflix does not reveal their numbers, so you don't have any sense of how popular something you've done is if it's on Netflix. Did I get that correctly?
Uh-huh. I mean, I was able to deduce based on some ratings, you know.
Okay,
30,000 people rated it, so okay.
I see.
So you can find out how many have rated it, but not how many.
Somebody
percentage
was
of
like
people watched
comments.
it?
Is that what it was? Is it like comments that you saw?
Yeah, stars. You know, how many
Stars.
people put stars? There's comments and then there's stars. 30,000 people had put, you know, 5 stars.
Which is a significant
That's
number,
a lot of
obviously.
people, I think.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I did. Okay, I figured 1 in 10 at
Oh,
most,
at the
probably.
most, I couldn't
At the
read
most.
anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that gave you some ammunition for negotiating with them.
Sure, and,
Yeah.
and just so you know, it's not me, it's my distribution company that's negotiating with Netflix, so that's a good thing that I went with them because
They have expertise.
Yeah, they have expertise.
To make
No,
money for
but they
themselves.
have the rights.
They have the
It's
rights,
their
and
position
they have
to
the
do it.
connection better than I do, for
Sure.
sure. And but will they always necessarily be pushing your film as much as you want, or like I had to stay on them? What about Netflix again, or for this year?
Yes.
The second year we don't have a deal with Netflix, and we still really don't know why.
Right.
Other than okay, so what?
Yeah.
They said Netflix is just really busy, and so that you say they're taking more docs, but at the same time, like this company went from 50 to 2 being on Netflix.
Ah.
They said I don't know, Netflix the analytics changed, and they're just not taking as much.
Really?
So sometimes it's just.
So it's behind a veil. It's kind of veiled.
Yeah.
Traditionally, Netflix has been difficult to, like they're busy. They're
Right.
just super busy.
Sure. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean it's because they're better, and like Pivot's really hard to get to too. They're really super busy. They're a new station. That's what happens. Busy, maybe overwhelmed. Doesn't mean like it's not a good product or they don't want.
Right.
Just super busy.
Yeah.
Is it okay if we have something on that?
Yeah.
How many people out there are making a doc or have made one?
Great.
And
What's yours?
yeah, what's it about?
Yeah, you.
Pointing at me?
Yeah, you.
It's about the revitalization process, a grassroots revitalization in a post-industrial town in the Northeast.
Oh, cool. Revitalization in a post-industrial town in the Northeast, like Detroit. No, not Detroit.
No, it wasn't. It was Binghamton, New York, so it's a
Binghamton,
small
New York?
city.
Oh, I know that's it.
Do you? How do you know Binghamton?
I lived in Ithaca for a while.
Oh, okay.
Where are you at with it?
I finished it. I haven't gotten it distributed at all, but it's done.
Great.
It's cut and music and everything.
Yes.
Is it feature length or
Feature.
Wow.
60 minutes.
What's the title?
Root from Rust. I would change that, but I
What is it again?
crowdsourced it. Root from Rust.
Yeah.
How many want to make a doc that haven't made one? Anybody?
People love docs. I came from
start
a narrative background too. I just slipped into docs. I think they're a great, damn fun format to play with.
What's the definition of a doc?
Well, that's a
It's
good
like-
question. I mean, when I was on the channel, it's something we talk about all the time. It's a very tough, very difficult thing to narrow down because I mean, obviously there's something to do with truth, but you know, then you get into the filmmaker is always bending the truth, and you don't want to use the word reality because now that
They
it's
wreck
become
that
to
one.
mean so many other things. So yeah, we used to have long discussions about it. It's
Can you use actors in a doc to depict
Yeah.
legitimate?
well, yeah, there's recreations
It's
in
still a doc?
documentaries. That's one of the areas where there's a lot of because some pure documentarians think that you can't.
Sure.
If you use recreations, then it's not a real doc or not a pure doc.
Sure.
But if
We-
you have to show someone sliding down a mountain for just a moment, then you have to get someone out there and capture it because no one was there when it actually happened, right? That's
You
when
say have to, but
Right.
that's a choice. Yeah, you don't have to if you want to show it like that. Then you could recreate it, or you could.
It's a style thing.
I don't know.
It's a style thing because recreations can be all different styles.
Yes.
There's a film that came out a few years ago, another one I think a fantastic doc that I would highly recommend, and I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix. It's called The Imposter, and they.
Oh, yeah, that was a good.
It's an incredible film, and they did their recreations in a very, very unique way, incredibly stylized, and I thought they worked fantastic. But he had some money; he spent a lot of money on it.
I mean, again, that's why you want to see a lot of things because you can learn different techniques and ways to tell your story. Because the documentary style can run like the gamut. But essentially, a doc is I have never thought about what that is.
It's really hard when you actually try to write it down.
It's not a made-up
really
story.
hard.
Maybe it's just not a.
It's real.
It's real.
Definitely
It's
real.
It's real. Okay.
It's real. It can be.
It's almost easier to say what it is. It's not a dramatic film.
It's not a dramatic
following
film.
a script.
Yeah, it's not following the script. I didn't make up the whole story. you know, it's not based on fact. It generally should be the fact,
It should,
told
yes.
in a dramatic way. So
Yeah.
it's facts told in a dramatic way.
One of my mentors early said, like, it's poetry, man. It's poetry.
Yeah,
Even
I
this
love that.
documentary, it's poetry. It's like you can, you know, play with the images, play with a little bit of the timeline here and there. It's okay.
Yeah.
We actually have to close on that note.
All right.
Okay. Go for it.
I have an ongoing documentary role for the company I work for, and I've tried little one-off videos on the web, and I've also played with making an actual feature. But because of its ongoing nature and the various topics we want to do, I'm feeling like a docu-series is more of a format that I maybe should try taking. But I'm not sure how vague or how specific the concept needs to be in order to be able to flex with the different topics that we might cover and the locations we're in, while still having that continuous thread that people would tune in for. What do you think about vague or specificity with
I think for networks, it needs to be pretty darn specific, usually. But a digital, I think you could be vague.
What's the subject matter?
I documented travel in high school, and so it's for marketing purposes, also educating other people about the lessons we learned, and just kind of spreading. We have the
You mean like
flexibility
safety?
Travel.
Like safety or just about traveling?
Traveling
we
high
have the
school.
flexibility of just being able to do whatever we want because funding's not really a concern. It's more we're trying something innovative, so we want to share it with the world, and we try lots of different things. We try to be thought leaders. We learning from a place and interacting with really cool people. So I want to be able to encapsulate it all without trying to do too much and have no real.
Well, just one idea off the top of my head. I mean, maybe contact the Travel Channel and see what they're looking for. You know, if you have the flexibility, if it's not something where it's this vision that you have to make, and you know, you can use the fact that you have that flexibility and see what they're looking for.
It's a traveling high school, a high school traveling.
It's kind of cool.
It's a high school that has no brick and mortar buildings.
Oh,
Just
wow.
a bunch of people from around the world, students and teachers from around the world, and we move to 3 locations each year and learn from the place. We have our own teachers. Students come for potentially 4 years of high school.
What about?
Let's talk after us. I don't think the Travel Channel per se
Yeah,
is
I
a good
actually
fit.
feel
No,
like-
I thought.
It feels to me like even it feels like a feature. It feels like they want to get grant money and follow this and find some
Yeah.
really cool story and establish yourself as a filmmaker. That's what I would. It's a really rich, good subject and killer access.
There was just one on a soccer team, high school soccer team, docu-series. I think it was on Hulu. I don't know, but it got a lot of awards. I think it's called Lost Boys. I think it's getting a lot of acclaim. It's just following one soccer team over time and their rags to riches, and it just sounded similar, where like you're just following the evolution of this thing. So you see, you have one idea, you like feature on like docu-series, 'cause it's wherever we care about.
But it's a really
It's up
it's
to
great.
you.
Whatever what you have.
Yeah, it is, and it's up to you. Whatever you really want to make,
Yeah.
so you can see we'll push you everywhere.
Follow the money.
Well, thank you
Yeah, you
guys
funded.
so much.